now Citrus County's top political podcast.
At some point you look around, and you're the only one.
It's pretty good.
And just like that, the perspective shifts.
Paging Bobby Winsler to the microphone. On in 3, 2.
Welcome in, coming to you from the Concurrent Media Network in the heart of Citrus County. However you're making us part of your day, whether it's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, the iHeartRadio app, or even through the Concurrent mobile app or website, I am sure glad you're joining us. Today's show brought to you by the Concurrent, your newest outlet for Citrus County opinion-based news. Check out the Concurrent, read, listen, watch, discuss at theconcurrent.com. Welcome to the conversation. Today's show sponsored by us. Welcome back in to the studio. Commission meeting today. Crystal River meeting last night gave the first look at the Charette plan in action. School board meeting later on today with a lot of money coming into the school board via grants, as well as they are going to talk about topics such as the calendar for the next school year on the agenda. What a time to be in Citrus. The county is going to begin the first of 2 strategic planning meetings open to the public this Saturday. I will be attending, hopefully in person, potentially via Zoom. Either way, I look forward to talking about it either in Sunday's column or on next week's podcast, or both. Commissioner Holly Davis, a strategic planner by trade, is hosting these meetings. She also had a guest column in this past Sunday's Chronicle commentary section, something we'll break down further in topic 2, coming up in about 10 minutes. And I think this is her time to shine. She's had a lot of good ideas on the board so far, some of which have been stonewalled by her less cooperative colleagues, but I think it is time for her to showcase her strengths and what strengths they truly are. Big time news from the Concurrent, as we now have our first distribution boxes and a new print edition on the way. For those watching on YouTube, I'm leaning back. You can get your first look at the distribution boxes behind me. Apologies to our audio audience, but I am as excited as could be for this next step. We have never missed a publication day since starting on February 7th. Every Thursday and Sunday, we've been bringing you 750-word columns, been entertaining you on this podcast every Tuesday at noon since the first week of May, but it's no secret that the Concurrent has been a little quiet lately. Sure, we've been able to cover the last commission meetings live. Sure, part of it might be that the Facebook algorithm doesn't always get our posts in front of you because of the small audience on our side, but neither is much of an excuse because we have been slacking in the infographics and news update department. But all that changes now. This will truly be an exciting month ahead for those of you who have been with us for a while as we take the Concurrent into the Citrus County mainstream, not as a competitor to the Chronicle, but rather as a supplement source of information, but really something so much more than that. If you read Sunday's column, which became the second most read column on the Concurrent, with Thursdays being the most read, then you'll understand what we're trying to do here. Being part of the Concurrent is serving the community in a way different to and not in competition with the Chronicle. The Chronicle is an appeal to community building, and it's great at that. The Concurrent is an appeal to thought-provoking, and we've got some areas we can improve with that, but I feel like we've done a good job so far, thanks and always to the continued support from people like you who are following along. I want to talk today, as we shift to topic 1, about popularity, something I knew nothing about in high school, but the concept of which has changed dramatically since. In fact, in higher level academic circles, popularity is asserted as a pejorative. Dr. Jonathan Haidt, a moral psychologist at NYU, whose moral foundation theory I used in the earliest of columns on the Concurrent, is known as a pop psychologist. Malcolm Gladwell, whose tipping point argument I used in columns 2 weeks ago, is referred to on his Wikipedia page as a pop economist. As Ezra Klein, who is a liberal media personality and co-founder of the explanatory publication Vox, is a pop political commentator. The pop is short for popular in each of these cases, and it's synonymous with being diluted. It's almost as if the few experts in the field all want to feel jealous of those who are able to take their own research and put it into more understandable terms. Think about that for a second. Gladwell, Haidt, and Klein's popularity actually makes them unlikable to some. That feels counterintuitive, or at least it does until I realize I'm guilty of it here locally. Popularity is a social construct of identity. It's a currency of how we relate to one another. Understanding popularity as an identity concept helps explain support for local programs like increasing the sales tax. Let's establish this up front. I am against raising the sales tax right now. I'm not intransigent. I'm capable of being moved by a persuasive argument. And this is what political consultants like myself and academics like myself struggle with right now. I'm not an undecided or independent voter. If we had to vote today, I would vote against it. So I'm not undecided, but I am a persuadable voter because I'm willing to change my mind if the argument makes sense. And I see my job as being, at least in part, to present the best possible counter-argument to raising the sales tax, which I can do in earnest, but not to beat the other side. The goal here isn't for me to personally win. I don't care about that. But it's to challenge the other side, to present their best argument as well, and put as much information in front of everyone else to make the best decision so that neither side wins, but the county wins as a whole. Before I hit you with the facts, let me slap a disclaimer on this. I know people working closer with it, including the county commissioners, have better access to information than I do. The reason I'm willing to so confidently state my case, knowing the only resources I have are what I read in the paper and gather through meetings, is because it's the same level of knowledge your standard primary voter will have as well. So if the other side wants to make a persuasive argument, they should do so in the context of what people like me know, not with the assumptions of what people like them know with access to more private and exclusive information. Make sense? Okay, let's get started. Right now, the county allocates about $4 million a year to residential road resurfacing. We need about $10 million a year to stay current. Thus, we are $6 million per year short, and we've already fallen behind. The $4 million a year now is in part funded by the gas tax. Another problem is that the gas tax doesn't collect as much as it used to as cars get more fuel efficient, and there is one projection, although I think it's overstated, that comes from the state that 40% of all new vehicles sold 3 years from now will be electric. Again, I think it's an overstatement, but the projection is out there and it's worth citing. We are currently on a 52-year cycle of road resurfacing. The average cycle should be 20 to 25 years, though this is an inexact science as well. Roads are graded on condition, where the higher the number on a scale 1 through 10, the closer it is to total reconstruction rather than repaving. The argument is that while catching up now, we can address more roads that are at a 6 and 7 that only need to be repaved, rather than at an 8, 9, or 10 where they need to be fully reconstructed. Thus, by spending more money now, we're saving money down the line because the cost of repair rather than total reconstruction is ultimately cheaper. This is all a sensible argument. And if you've been nodding along so far, I have too. I wanted to present this side as objectively as possible because it's not a world-ending proposal of government corruption. But it does have its flaws, and it starts with the math. The proposal is set to sunset the tax after 10 years. But let's look at that year by year. On September 28th, Commissioner Ruthie Schleybaugh said the tax would collect $16 million from tourists alone, and the assumption is that this was annually. If the same article and repeated in this past Sunday's editorial, County Administrator Randy Oliver said that tourists would be paying for a quarter of the tax. By this math, the county would collect $64 million annually in sales tax, and that just can't be right. So it's not $16 million annually from tourists. Let's say that Commissioner Schleybaugh said it was the total over 10 years that it would collect $16 million from tourists, which the wording in the Chronicle story would be a little off, but it's a safer assumption. So if it instead collects $1.6 million from tourists per year, 16 divided by 10, which would represent a quarter of the total it would collect, which is $6.4 million collected as the and the county's share of that, excluding the 1.6 for tourists, would be $4.8 million. So $4.8 million annually from county residents, $1.6 million annually from tourists, $6.4 million total to address road resurfacing. This 4.8 of residents' share divided by 150,000 residents is $32 per person, meaning kids of all ages as well. So for a family of 4, it would be about $128 per year, 32 times 4. Commissioner Schleybaugh is quoted in the article that it will cost residents between $8 and $20 per year, well below my 32. In fact, on the low end, 4 times as cheap as my 32. So the math still doesn't add up. Now, the point of this today is not to decide on the sales tax, which is going to be a conversation for the next year, but rather to look at the issue for the reasons why the proposal may be supported. At the national level, people internalize conservative and liberal ideas to the point of making them part of their identity. And one major criticism I have of my own conservative-held ideal beliefs is that part of this identity is that you also have to be angry and rude and anti-intellectual, all of which I reject as true conservative traits, but that do catapult you into superstardom of conservative media if you embody them. Now, we don't have this conservative-liberal divide too badly here in Citrus, but we do have something like it. Instead of liberal versus conservative, we have an identity of insider versus outsider. Are you doing enough to prove you are pro-citrus, or are you a muckraker coming in to change our way of life? Increasing the sales tax has become a lead talking point among citrus insiders, putting tremendous pressure on anyone who identifies as being a citrus homer to support the proposal or risk being socially outcast as not being seen as pro-citrus enough by your peers. The irony is, it will change the very essence of what makes Citrus a great place to live, which is low cost of living with a high quality of life, in the name of improving it and preserving the status quo against the outsiders. Now, there's a lot more that goes into this debate, from exemptions to vehicle tar weights, that reflect the complexity of the issue. The point of this pop podcast host, who cites studies from pop economists and pop psychologists, is to get the conversation started that the math isn't adding up, which should give any rational person pause in supporting the measure until it does. But many smart people are jumping on board with the proposal, less on its merit and more because of what supporting it says about them to their friends, not about what it will do for us. Getting to topic 2, but first, be among the first to advertise with the Citrus County Concurrent. We offer a variety of ways to reach your next customer, including website graphics, audio reads, and even traditional print advertising. Get in early to lock in your rate, even as our audience grows. Special consideration for donation spots given to nonprofits as well. Contact advertising at theconcurrent.com for more information. That's advertising at theconcurrent.com to learn more. Longtime listeners of the Concurrent will know that the second topic of these podcasts is a reaction to the Sunday commentary from the Chronicle. Unfortunately, that's not the direction that we're going to take this week because a review of the Chronicle would be incomplete without mentioning the one unfolding story already in the first 2 days of this week. Yesterday, the Chronicle published an 8-page edition that was mostly wire stories that didn't get delivered until later on in the day. They made an apology announcement and did the best they could. Today, there was no announcement, but it appears to be the same story. One comment on Facebook already says, quote, "No mailbox paper either. What's today's excuse? They are trying to force people online, whether it works or not," end quote. I don't think this is true. Newsprint is cheap, and the Chronicle owns its own presses, making it even cheaper. And print ads are far more better profit margins than online ads. So I don't think the push is to force people online, especially since, as of writing this around 9:30 a.m., the online version, e-edition of today's Chronicle isn't published either. I do think these are just problems with the transition from Landmark to Paxton Media Group parent companies, and it's a real shame. PMG, Paxton Media Group, did promote or keep a lot of the leadership, such as Trina Murphy as promotion to publisher after Jerry's retirement, and the retention of Jeff Bryan as executive editor. And I don't think either of these people are to blame for the current hardships. In fact, I think PMG has treated them quite cruelly. While leadership has stayed the same, PMG has cleaned house with middle management, which is an impossibly tough situation to have to put someone who has been with the paper as long as Ms. Murphy has to a change for her to make. If PMG wanted to make changes after an acquisition, which is a fairly common practice, they should have brought in someone else to do it. Even though Trina's more than capable of doing the job, making her do it is just a cruel situation. One of my fears when PMG took over was that they would continue the heavy PR culture and do less reporting. This has been the case somewhat, as stories worthy of further investigation like the Halls River pollution have largely taken the approach of not rocking the boat. But in doing so, PMG has also made some changes that has eroded the community feel of the newspaper, from leaving the office so short-staffed that disruptions like what is occurring all this week keep happening, to even the website homepage ads that are now dominated by ads from corporations rather than local businesses. We're running a bit long today with the podcast time, so I'm going to wrap it up without much reaction to the commentary. As I said at the front, Commissioner Holly Davis wrote a fantastic column urging people to show up to the strategic planning meetings that are upcoming starting this weekend. I hope to see you there. Of all the commissioners, Commissioner Davis understands the power of planning, but also the power of communicating, and that is going to be critical to the success of future boards. So I'll wrap up today by saying this. It's a real shame what is unfolding with the paper right now. And again, it's not the fault of any one of the hardworking people in the building. We need a community newspaper. And right now, that community newspaper needs us. In the past, I have said the most supportive things we can do for the Chronicle right now is to give them our readership along with our patience, and I am more than happy to do both. That is all from the Bobby Winsler Show. Follow the Concurrent on social media for the latest updates, and we'll be back next Tuesday at noon. If you want to join this conversation, find us on social at the Concurrent Facebook, Twitter, go to the Concurrent website or mobile app, post on our discussion boards. Today's episode sponsored by us.